Lisa?
Lisa's here. She just doesn't have audio.
Oh, she just doesn't have
Yes.
audio?
Lisa
Yes, she's here,
is joining with her phone for audio. No, we cannot hear you, Lisa.
How about now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, there we go.
Welcome.
Okay, so yes, I had to join by phone, even though I was on a Zoom earlier. So, welcome to technology, right? Hi, everybody
Yeah,
on
no,
a beautiful day.
I was having some issues myself, so. Right now, it only looks like we have 3 board members. Me, Christy, and Larry. We need what, 4 for a quorum, right?
No, there are 5 members.
Oh, son, we have 3, we got a quorum.
I saw that. Actually, I've heard that. I will say hello to everybody right now, quickly,
Yes,
because
Larry.
I'll have my video off. Yeah, I'm just saying hello. I am here, but I'm just keeping my video off because I'm
No,
controlling.
we understand, you're working. I was in that situation a few times myself.
As you see, this is my land right now.
There we go.
So maybe you can help us with the technical difficulties.
I think we'll have to bring him in special for that.
Yeah.
All right, well, it's 4:05, so we might as well get started. So we just need the approval of the agenda for this month. Larry, you could just wave or something. Christy, we good?
Approve the minutes for this month. Approve the agenda for
Okay.
this month, excuse me.
You're good, Larry, right? All right, motion to, all right, so the agenda is good. In the minutes, anybody see anything on the minutes? You good? Christy, I was good with it. I didn't see anything.
All good to me.
All right, Larry, we're gonna approve the minutes. All righty, so go down to the board chairs report. As many of you know, the Long Island Railroad has come under fire by the MTAIG's office for accepting M9 cars from the manufacturer that had defects. It was also reported that the Long Island Railroad should be going after Kawasaki for millions of dollars in damages. Lisa and I had a Zoom meeting last week with Long Island Railroad President Categorizing and her senior staff to discuss the matter. And we were informed that defects were relatively minor in nature and that the repairs were made during road testing conducted before putting the cars into revenue service. Ms. Rinaldi was not prepared to discuss the Long Island Railroad's plans to recover damages from the manufacturer, but did say that she would give an update on the M9 situation at the April Long Island Railroad Metro North Committee meeting. She also assured us that there would be appropriate amount of rolling stock available when East Side Access opens to the public at the end of the year. M3s will be returned to service until we start receiving the M9A fleet. And we have no idea when that will be, so the M3s could be in service for a year or so. All right, as part of the New York State budget for 22-23, which was recently adopted, there will be a gas tax holiday, which is a concern to the MTA as we receive a portion of that tax money from mass transit. We have been told New York State will make up any lost revenue, but there's still some concern about the precedent for this being set. I have also been asked to serve on the MTA board working group that will be addressing resiliency issues throughout the MTA system. We have had 2 meetings with 2 more scheduled before we report to the full MTA board. There is also an MTA board committee addressing trespassing throughout the system. While I'm not on that committee, I have asked that the appropriate amount of time and attention be paid to commuter rail, as between the Long Island Railroad and Metro North, there are approximately 30 fatal incidents involving trespassers each year. Also, I didn't put it on my report because I didn't have anything positive to report to everybody, but Lisa and myself, we had a Zoom meeting with the powers that be at Penn Station, Pat Warren from MTA, the safety man, and a few other people there. Basically, we expressed our concerns to them, what we wanted to see done. They came back and told us what they were doing, but it's not like I can come back and give you any concrete plans. Oh, they're going to do this, they're going to do that, and they're going to do the other thing. They are monitoring the situation, and we will be staying on top of it. So I just wanted to bring this up to let you know that we are looking into it. We are reaching out to people, but we don't have anything positive to report back to you at this time. Lisa, does that sound about right, or?
Yeah, it does. One of the things I think that came out of the meeting was that there's so many different entities and organizations that are involved in the care and feeding of Penn Station.
Well, I couldn't believe it when they showed us the list. It was like,
And
there must have been 24 different organizations that had some sort of piece.
Yeah, absolutely. And, whether it's the business development or the safety and security or all of the different aspects of it. And so, nobody was really in charge. So the MTA is basically taking control of the reins, which is good. And it sounds as though they're calling people to some levels of accountability. And from what it sounded like, that basically is elevating their level, the other agencies' level of participation, including Amtrak and New Jersey Transit and their police forces, and sending and elevating the level of people that they're sending to some of the meetings. So I thought that was the good news that came out of it. And we asked, what can we do? How can we support you in the work that you're trying to do? And they said, well, one of the issues that they see is that when drug treatment centers are in the neighborhood, they close. And then when they're closed, people have no place to go, so they go to Penn Station. Or if there are other kinds of facilities, that have closing hours, that they're then leaving the people they're providing services to with no other places to go. So they said, it would be helpful to have 24-hour services, or have services that where people can go after, or to some other places. So putting that out there.
Didn't they mention also that they closed the office that they had in Penn Station itself?
Right, BRC is closed in Penn Station. So they are located on 25th Street or 26th Street.
Right, so they're like 6-7 blocks away.
Yeah, which I thought was really interesting. So I don't know if they're reopening or what's happening there, but that was interesting.
Oh yeah, no, I was very surprised too that that they closed that office. I mean, even if they just had it so that their people who were in Penn Station could just make pit stops to do reports and stuff like that. So again, that's one of the things we'll keep following up on. This wasn't a one and done deal. We'll go back to them in another month or so and say, okay, what kind of progress have you made? Where are we at? And take it from there.
And I just wanted to also add thank you to Hector for helping facilitate that.
Yes, thank you, Hector. We did appreciate that. Trying to pull all those people together wasn't very easy. All righty. Next on our agenda is the Executive Committee appointment affirmation with Marilyn Potterson resigning from the Commuter Council. We have an opening on the PCAC Executive Board. Larry had indicated that he would be willing to serve in that capacity. I'd love to have him in that capacity, but we need to make it official and bring it up at this meeting and take a vote on it. So I will move the nomination. Guess Larry's just listening in. Christy, would you mind seconding that, or?
I second the motion.
All righty. And we have a, Lisa, do we have the proxy from? No, we
did not hear late from Brian that he was not going to be able to join us, and haven't heard from Peter. In fact, I'll reach out to him.
All right, well, if myself, Larry, and Christy all vote yes, that's 3 out of 5, and that will be enough to confirm them. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We got Larry, we're good. So Larry is now a member of the PCAC Executive Board representing the Long Island Railroad Commuters Council.
Larry will send you the agenda. The next meeting is on Tuesday at 9 a.m.
All righty, so the next item on the agenda is Executive Director and staff updates. So that would be you, Lisa.
Okay. We're going to provide you with an update on the social media and the the complaint/requests that we get. But before we do that, I'm going to turn to Kara for that. I want to just touch on the events of this week. You know, the shooter in the subway on the N train at 36th Street was something that was very scary, something that captured everybody in the city and anybody who rides the subway, and some people who are thinking about getting back on the subways and maybe haven't, but we're just about to. They got the guy. You know, a lot has been made about whether or not the cameras were functioning or not functioning in the system, and that's, you know, that's sort of one piece of it. There are a lot of moving parts. Out of the 10,000 cameras in the system, that 3 weren't working. Sometimes that also happens. So, you know, there are some things, a lot of successes that are highlighted with the footage that came out of the guy, with the fact that we know how many cameras there are, what they're used for, but also some of the flaws in the system. So the MTA is going to be looking at that. But it also, you know, sort of highlights that cameras are one aspect of the public safety elements that go into keeping riders safe. And I think that that's sort of gotten lost in the conversation. So that's going to be part of what we're continuing to look at and talk about. That goes into the Penn Station conversation too. You know, it's great if you have cameras in Penn Station, but that doesn't do, you know, that's not the answer if crimes are being committed in any, you know, still prevention is the best dose of medicine.
Well, the cameras are basically a reactive function. You know, they'll see something that happened, like in this particular case, they were able to go back to the cameras and identify the guy, but the cameras can't prevent things from happening. You know,
Right.
Maybe indirectly, because people might be less likely to commit a crime if they know that they're, you know, under surveillance. But for the most part, it's a reactive function. It's not a proactive function.
Right. So that's, you know, that's something that we need to keep continuing to talk, but to talk about and to make sure it isn't lost in all of the bits and pieces of the conversation about the relay piece of this camera and this feed. So, but you know, if this was in fact a federal crime, and there's conversations about improving the cameras, perhaps the federal government would like to pay for those improvements. That's maybe a conversation worth having.
Well, actually, now would probably be the time to ask, especially since that happened kind of close to where Mr. Schumer hangs his hat, right? He's from Brooklyn somewhere.
Yeah.
I know it's a big borough, but
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, and we did hear from him. So, in fact, on that day, Jerry and I both got a call from Senator Schumer's staff. And one of the things that he wanted to talk about was WeWork and provide us with an update there. So Mike and I spoke about cameras a bit, and you know, we didn't have enough information to really put out any kind of feelers about whether or not he could come with a big check and put in some funding for that. But the update on the WeWork situation and about funding refunds for people who have money stuck in WeWork is that, and I really do believe this, and Larry, I know we've gotten our hopes up before, is that Senator Gillibrand is now working with, is going to introduce legislation in the Senate as a companion piece to Congresswoman Rice's legislation that sounds very similar and looks similar to what was introduced, or they were going to introduce months ago, almost a year ago, which won't address everybody's problems, but it will address a lot of the outstanding issues about people who were unable to get access to their funds, and that should be in the next couple of weeks. That Senate is out of session right now until the end of April or beginning of May, and I did indicate that we'd like to speak with Senator Gillibrand's staff in Washington to get to be able to talk about what the legislation says, to do some kind of event with them or however they're going to manage it. So,
and he also made it kind of clear that it may not be 100% what we want, but because tax laws and the whole bit with the IRS, just when I had the conversation with them, we got into it for a little bit. And it's not quite as simple as just giving somebody a 1099 and giving them their money. And he explained the whole thing because I guess there's also a piece where the employer gets a break or something when they offer these programs or something. So it got very complicated. So he said they will work on it. What they will come up with, or what Senator Gillibrand will come up with, should satisfy most of what we're looking for. Maybe not everything, but as I told them, well, half a loaf of bread's better than nothing. So whatever they can do would be greatly appreciated. And of course, anytime you're dealing with the IRS, the fact that they actually have to do legislation because the IRS don't want to cooperate tells you that right where we're at right there.
Right. So hopefully this time we'll actually see some resolution, and Larry, nobody will be able to call you a liar.
And I also had, as part of the conversation with Senator Schumer's office, I did mention the situation at Penn Station because his call was, we understand you guys have a concern about safety. So I just kind of segued into that for a little bit. I said, well, we have our major terminal, Penn Station, and explained what was going on and this and that. I told him we're not looking for his office to do anything in particular right now. I just wanted to be aware of the situation, and we may ask them to make a couple of subtle inquiries, certain people. Not that we want to go public like newspaper public, but in such a way that, if certain people were to get an inquiry from the Senate Majority Leader's office, they might be more inclined to giddy up and get some things done, because he does have a considerable amount of clout. So that's something we might be able to have in our back pocket and hopefully be able to use down the line at the appropriate time. But he did indicate that it is something that they would be interested in assisting us with. We just have to tell them, what and when. All right. Do you have anything else, Lisa? Or?
Kara was going to give us a preview of some of the social media stuff. The issues that we've seen and heard about. If you'd like us to go into that, I know we have our presenters, but I think Kara, you want to go. Do you want to hear sort of an overview? Do you want to see a screenshot or some kind of?
Just an overview would be fine. I know it's still a work in progress, and we're still, dotting our I's and crossing our T's. So if we just get an overview, it'd be great.
Are you on?
Yeah. So we received a few emails this month from commuters, most notably about paper schedules at stations and about the conditions at Penn Station. And on social media, we are monitoring comments that riders have been submitting to the Long Island Railroad and getting responses, most notably about trains missing connections, especially when the first train is delayed and the second train would only have to wait a few extra minutes. And also about overcrowding on platforms when the platform for a particular train is announced at Penn Station at the same time that another train is arriving, and the platform not being able to accommodate as many people. And additionally, about the last two cars and trains at Jamaica, when occasionally conductors are not making the announcements telling people that they have to be in the not in the last two cars, and the doors between the cars are locked at those times. So just making sure that announcements are made in advance, and if not, that the doors are unlocked so that people are able to reach their connecting trains if possible.
All right. As a follow-up to that, I did mention, I believe, Lisa, we did send an email on the paper schedules, right?
We did, and Hector.
Yeah, and with that,
follow up on that.
Yeah, we're not looking to go back to the old days where they print scads and scads of schedules and schedules to each, for each station, something like that. But we feel it would probably be a good idea to have the branch schedules at least posted at each train station outside where the public can view them, and maybe have a handful of schedules available at major terminals like Penn Station, Atlantic Terminal, Jamaica. And again, something that you can just go up to the information booth and request one if you want. So we're not looking for the Long Island Railroad to have this big printing bill, but there are people who are not technologically savvy, who don't have access to, the smartphones and stuff like that. So we think that, might be a good idea, but it's something that we'll keep an eye on and see if the railroad will accommodate us. Anything else, Lisa, Kara?
That is broadly it.
All righty. I see Mr. Paley joined us, and he's the next on the agenda. Should we go down to him?
Yes, I think somebody just is ringing the doorbell here.
Oh, no, he's there.
I'm here. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm Bob Paley, Senior Director of Transit-Oriented Development in MTA Construction and Development. And I'm here to present to you today a project that our team is undertaking to improve station access in MTA's suburban territory. It's a 12-month study. We're 5 months into it. It'll be completed by the end of the year. So the first last mile study focuses on improving customer access to suburban commuter rail stations. We're looking broadly at alternative modes, including walking, biking, ride hailing, carpooling, microtransit, fixed route transit, and micromobility. So we're coordinating with the legislative mandated MTA system-wide strategic action plan, which is looking at the entire MTA system to improve bike and pedestrian access on MTA bridge crossings, as well as rail and subway stations and other facilities. The goal is to incorporate bike and pedestrian improvements into MTA capital program projects with oversight from all agencies and the railroad commuter councils. So there's some overlap between the two initiatives, but while the first last mile study is more narrowly focused geographically, it's broader with respect to modes. So we're examining existing access and access barriers and industry best practices. The deliverable will be an interactive toolkit for our stakeholders to assess their local stations and to implement first and last mile pilot programs. So we go to the next slide. So is Emily, Emily, are you running this or?
Yeah, I think it'd go into a different display setting and it would.
Sorry about that.
Okay. The Zoom PowerPoint.
So while Emily's bringing that up, or I can just keep going because the visuals of the first couple slides aren't really critical. So convenient access to our suburban stations is really key to MTA's business model. Traditionally, that meant access by car, which of course requires parking. But the trouble with that traditional model is that parking structures are expensive. They cost about $35,000 to $60,000 a space to build, and then another $500 a space a year to maintain. Parking uses the valuable land adjacent to the station, land that should be used for more productive transit-oriented uses. Many suburban customers don't own a vehicle, either through choice or economic circumstance, and promoting driving is bad environmental policy. Fortunately, there's been a pretty major shift in how people travel, and you'll hear more about that in just a minute. And that shift presents us with a major opportunity to do four things. First is to facilitate the seamless, flexible, convenient travel options that our customers want. Second is grow ridership by accommodating those preferences. Third is promote a more environmentally responsible transportation network. And fourth, reduce the need for expensive parking garages, leaving more space for transit-oriented mixed-use buildings. So I'm going to turn the presentation over to Emily Provencha, the project manager on our team, who will walk you through the details of the study.
Hi, everybody. My name is Emily Provencha. I work with Bob Paley in the Transit-Oriented Development Group. So let's talk quickly about how regional travel patterns have changed. These are trends that were accelerated by the pandemic, but were actually underway even before the pandemic. So employment outside the city is growing. Places like White Plains, Greenwich, Hicksville are becoming big job hubs. for reverse commuting. Many of those people who work in those jobs are coming from New York City. So there's a growth, like I said, in reverse commuting. On Metro North, reverse commute has increased 40% since 2000. And Long Island hasn't had the track capacity to allow for much reverse commuting, but with the Long Island Railroad expansion, the third track and East Side access, these are going to allow for more outbound trains in the peak hour, and we expect reverse commuting to grow significantly. Some more trends. People have been working more flexible hours. People also ride the train outside of the traditional peak hours. And more of our railroad customers ride the train for discretionary purposes, so non-commutation trips are up. And finally, young adults overall just seem to be less interested in owning a car and driving than previous generations. So more people are interested in alternatives, not just public transit, but walking, biking, taking an Uber, that kind of thing. So I'm going to move on to the next slide. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I just spoke about the wrong slide. I'm going to go back to, these are the travel patterns that I just spoke about. And I'm so sorry, now I'm going to go back to this side. So the purpose of our study is to learn how to make it easier for our customers to travel to and from our stations from their origin destinations, like their home. What urban planners refer to this problem is the first and last mile problem. So without driving to the station in their own car and parking in a big parking lot or a parking structure. So we're analyzing current travel patterns to every single one of our stations in the 7 suburban counties that we serve with Metro North and Long Island Railroad. We're identifying gaps in people's access, and we're strategizing how new technology and emerging alternative modes can make it easier to get to the station. Of course, this work has to be done in partnership with local municipalities and local counties, since most of the investments and policy outcomes of this effort will need to be undertaken by them, our local and county stakeholders. Our role at the MTA really is to facilitate the discussion, put together all of this amazing research and analysis, and hand all of this knowledge and the tools and resources back to our stakeholders and allow them to and encourage them to take action. So here in these photos below are some examples of the types of alternative modes that we're looking at. So we're looking at bike share, we're looking at scooter share, moped share, microtransit. This photo below in the bottom right is the microtransit that runs in New Rochelle on the New Haven line. New Rochelle, the city of New Rochelle partnered with Circuit, which provides an on-demand microtransit trip free to use for residents of New Rochelle. And I included this photo here with the cell phone. Most of the emerging mobility modes or operators are all run on an app. They're app-based on-demand services. So I'm going to move on to the next slide now. Let me just make sure I'm getting the right one. Like I said before, examples of first and last mile strategies. So here are some of the strategies currently being used within the MTA territory. So in the middle top, you'll see the Wheels to You program. This program is a microtransit program running operated by Norwalk Transit District in Norwalk, Connecticut on the New Haven line. And just moving kind of clockwise, Suffolk County Bike Share. This is called Bethpage Ride, and it actually runs at runs across several municipalities of Suffolk County, some of which are Long Island Railroad stations. And then moving down to this Lime Bike Share, this was a pilot at White Plains Station, again, app-based bike share. And then Suffolk Transit on Demand. So this is being run by 2 separate companies. And again, it's an on-demand microtransit service out of Southampton. And then moving to the left, Yonkers, the city of Yonkers on the Hudson line, they have partnered with Bird to provide scooter share. throughout the city of Yonkers, and that includes 3 of our stations in the city of Yonkers. Of course, there are a lot of new ways to get around. Like I said, most of these are powered by apps on our phones. And so one of the things we're looking at is how MTA's own app, My MTA, can be integrated with some of these third-party mobility providers. And there's a parallel effort going on within MTA strategic initiatives right now on how to better integrate all of these third-party apps into the My MTA app. So now I'd like to move on. As a part of the study, we had our consultant take a look at categorizing stations by type. And typically, the MTA would categorize stations by service type. This is the first time that we are looking at their land use and their population density and other characteristics surrounding the station area to categorize stations by type. So I'm going to start here at the top, major hubs. For example, this would be Metro North's Yonkers station. This is a major hub where our customers can transfer to multiple other modes. They have an Amtrak transfer, they have several regional bus transfers, or they have local bus transfers. Let me move on to the higher density in the second column in the middle. And one example of that is Long Island Railroad's Baldwin station. So the higher density stations are usually a bit closer into the city, and they simply have higher density population of residents, and they may also have a high density of daytime population, which indicates that people are coming to those stations to work. Okay, now let's move on to the medium density suburban type. An example of this would be Long Island Railroad's Amityville station, where you have slightly less density and slightly less daytime employee population. And moving on to medium density village center. An example of this would be Long Island Railroad's Albertson station. And this indicates a little bit less dense suburban style where, you know, you may start to have a few gaps in pedestrian sidewalk access. You may have a lack of bike lanes. So a lot of the station area characteristics are really tied to, we're finding, to how densely populated it is, whether there's a village center nearby, and these kinds of aspects are helping us throughout the rest of our study. And let me move on to lower density. So lower density, one example is a station like Metro North's Dover Plains station, where, you know, there's really not a lot of people living around the station, and there's not a lot of major destinations that are bringing people to the station in the daytime. Okay, so finally we have seasonal and limited stop. And these are stations like Metro North's Breakneck Ridge station, which, you know, is primarily used by hikers. We have a couple other stations in Metro North territory, like the Manitou station, where, you know, it's primarily used for hikers. Or I'll give you an example on Long Island Railroad. The stations on the far east side of Long Island Railroad, where, you know, the frequency of service and you know, the people that most frequent those stations are really seasonal. So this framework really helps us to better understand how different stations fit into their communities and how people access these stations and how they might access them in the future if we are to make improvements. Now I'd like to move on. We have done a little bit of an analysis so far based on how our customers are currently accessing the stations, categorized by the station typology categories that I just showed you on the last page. So as you can see at the bottom here, we have station access categorized by major hub, higher density, medium density suburban, and so on. And one of the things we've learned in the way that our customers access the station, it varies dramatically between the typologies. So overall, region-wide, about a quarter of our customers walk and about 2/3 drive. The remaining 10% of customers take a bus or a shuttle or transit or ferry, and a very small percentage of customers currently bike, although we have been seeing that rising. So when you look at this chart, you see that there are some interesting patterns. So on the left, in the higher density and medium density suburban communities, a lot of people are walking already. In the major hub category, it has the highest transit access by all of our customers, which we would expect. As expected as well, the share of people who drive is much higher in the lower density typology. And lastly, the seasonal and limited stop stations, we're seeing the highest number of people using bikes to access the station, although it's still pretty low overall. So what our consultant is focusing on now is identifying station access gaps. These are physical barriers preventing customers from walking, biking, sharing a ride, or taking transit to the station. And they're also indicating where we have a low utilization of customers using these alternative modes in areas where the physical characteristics around the station lend themselves well to using alternative modes. So with both of these analyses done, we will have a better idea of which first mile, last mile strategies would be most appropriate to increase access for those modes without increasing driving. Okay, and moving on to one of the major deliverables of this study, the toolkit. All of the analyses that we're doing and research on case studies and best practices, all of that information will be incorporated into an interactive online toolkit. And I'm showing you a screenshot of the toolkit here on the screen right now. This will be a web-based interactive toolkit that we're developing with our consultant for our stakeholders to use. And what they'll be able to do is assess their station area and develop pilot programs around their station area for specific modes like walking, biking, sharing a ride, and also transit. So the purpose of the toolkit is to give county and local stakeholders the information they need to assess their station, identify the right mix of strategies for their station, and like I said, design a pilot program. But what they can also do in the toolkit is calculate potential costs and strategize funding sources. So we will be beta testing the toolkit throughout the month of May, and we expect it to be publicly available on our website in July for our stakeholders to use. Now, I should clarify that this interactive toolkit is not completely publicly available in the sense that anybody could access it. We're hoping that our stakeholders will request access to the toolkit, and then we'll verify whether they're local and community stakeholders, they're nonprofits, or other parties interested in actually implementing first mile, last mile pilots. Okay, thank you all for listening. I just have one last slide. So as I mentioned about the toolkit, this initiative can really only succeed with participation from our local and county stakeholders. And they have been working with us throughout this process on an informal basis, just checking in to see where we're at and figuring out what are the best ways to move forward with this study and this toolkit. Over the next several months, our goal is to formalize that collaboration and enter into agreements with local partners for 10 pilot programs throughout both the Metro North and Long Island Railroad territory, so 10 total. Since one of our goals is to learn which first mile, last mile strategies work best in different contexts and ultimately replicate those strategies across the region, the pilot will include different types of stations, like I explained before with the different station typologies. We want to choose stations from different station typologies, and we also want to choose different alternative modes as models that will hopefully be replicable throughout our entire territory. So if all goes well, we hope that our stakeholders are eager to implement some pilot programs next year, and they would be able to continue in years after that, because the toolkit will be an ongoing resource available to the stakeholders even after the study is completed. So with that, I would just say thank you, and that's the end of our presentation today.
Hey,
And
Emily,
we're happy to take any questions.
Okay, Emily, I got a couple of questions for you. It looked like on one of those illustrations you had scooters, but yeah, I didn't see any mention of it. A lot of our riders, actually, I think more riders are accessing our trains with these motorized scooters than bicycles at this point in time. So again, most of them take the scooter on the train and then they use it when they get to their destination. But I think it's something that you just should, I don't know how you would fit it in to your program, but I think it's something that needs to be considered because it is out there and there is a lot of motorized scooter use.
Yes, you are.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, and then another thing was you mentioned about, you know, these bike shares. You know, like I guess like the Citibank and the city and whatever. But it'd be nice if they would actually put the old-fashioned bike racks up so that someone could take their own bicycle, you know, to the train station and just, you know, lock it up on a bike rack. Is that something that you're considering bringing back? I know they used to have it at one time, and then right around 9/11, or right after 9/11, they kind of got rid of that stuff.
So can I just jump in here? I think that that's probably one of the areas of overlap between our project and the system-wide bike ped project that's going to be looking at, you know, bicycle access, you know, as you just described, at stations, across the bridges, whether you know, whether or not to bring them on trains, you know, all those kinds of questions. We're looking more at third-party providers like a bike share program, something that's more of a mobility provider kind, you know, like a service. But you're absolutely right. All these things are sort of part of the much broader picture, but this study is a little bit more narrowly focused on the third-party mobility providers, but all the range of, you know, vehicles and transportation modes that you describe, including electric scooters.
Okay, no, just the way you said the presentation was first mile, last mile station access. So I didn't realize it was pretty much, you know, third party. I know third party is a big portion of it, but that's why it.
Yeah, no, I just wanted, I just to again clarify, there's this other study that I know that the commuter councils are going to be part of that's just, you know, initiating now to look at those kinds of, you know, bike and ped access, particularly the bike issue, you know, bringing your own bike onto our facilities.
Now, will you be part of that, or?
Yeah, we're coordinating, and you know, we sit on each other's committees, so we're very much part of each other's work.
No, great. Only because that's a concern to us. I guess Lisa will tell you, because of this new legislation, you know, they actually want us to have, you know, a commuter council member from the bike community. But yet there's no plan on who's gonna nominate that person or give us that person. It's a little bit of a disaster, but it'd be nice to know who we're working with, and we'd love to work with you on this one.
Yeah, so I'm sure that's the legislatively mandated study, and they'll be reaching out to you in due course, and probably not too long from now.
Okay, great.
Yeah, we'll be speaking with them very soon on that. And that's one of those little technical glitches that we have to iron out. Who appoints these people to our councils? And then figure out how to make the improvements with our new members. But I think it all dovetails, so that as you're doing first mile, last mile, absolutely. If you're looking at third-party bike share, that would fit into any consideration that we would have by making recommendations for bicycle access to Long Island Railroad or Metro North facilities. So it's actually a great example of symmetry and how it all fits together.
Okay, I think Debbie has a question. Deborah?
Yes, hi, thank you. This is the question is, first of all, I'd like to see, I agree about having racks for people who bring their own bikes, but I would like also to please make sure that you have ramps that people using mobility devices, as well as more than one space for any form of, I'm going to say the term from New York, accessoride, because there's times there's 2 or 3 of them waiting at stations for the people, and they have to jockey where to go. And there's always not enough spaces left for them, and or people like to park in them when they shouldn't, or they say, I'm waiting for some, well, excuse me, but this special, like the accessory is coming to get myself or another person off the train with disabilities, or it's a senior who qualifies. And I would like to see more of that, because there are times like when you try, I have friends who live out in Long Island who use their forms of, National Suffolk County accessory. They have trouble getting to their actual the vehicle waiting for them because their cars refuse to move out of the way. So what are you going to be doing about that? Sorry.
It's a great question, and it's one that requires some, thought and management ultimately at the stations, but that's a great point.
Thank you.
All right, I can only see about 5 or 6 people on the screen, so I don't know. Does anybody else have their hand
I have
raised?
my hand up, Jerry.
Christopher,
Okay,
you had your hand up. Is that about this, or is that about?
No, this one. I'm focusing on this one. That's a different subject.
Okay,
We'll talk
and we'll
later.
go back to your other point.
Yeah. First of all, there was one thing I was really glad to see, and I don't have to say the other thing because my mother said it already, but now I'm going to add this. And you mentioned about the desert areas. There is one thing I'm going to add in Suffolk County, and that half of the Macarthur train that goes up to the Greenpoint branch. You have a farm over there called the Suffolk County Farms that people are traveling over there right now because they are doing a lot of new things, not just for, everyone likes to learn different things, and they want to get out and get all that fresh air. But due to the fact there is a station, but no transportation to get to the farm. If you do that, I feel like I'm walking from my house from here to the train station, which is 10 blocks, or make that 15 blocks if I'm going to Kings Highway train station. So is there possible, can you work with them also? Because I think this will be a great idea with that line, because sometimes that line runs only one time back and forth like I'm doing right now, because that is something that will encourage more of the community for seniors, and because they are working now with disabled and seniors over there at that Suffolk County Fund, and that's Young Park. And forgive me, I'm saying the name wrong because it's not easy to say the word.
Yeah, Pank.
Thank you. That's
Yeah,
what I said.
thank
Thank you. Thank you for the. But I agree with Ms. Dreifel. I agree with my mother also, because with the connection to the train to get the transportation, there are some issues. Also, if we're going to be updating parking spots for them, we got to make sure we can see them, proper lighting and proper where a person can go to not just get a bike or the electric scooters, but we need to see it more invisible. So I hope that helps.
I have a question. I see Shaul's hand up, but since I pointed that out, I'm going to just take this moment to jump in. Are you, in terms of looking at first mile, last mile, are you looking at walkable, any walkable spaces near stations as well?
Yeah, definitely. We're trying to be as broad as possible, and what we're hoping is that among the 10 pilots that get chosen, we'll have different modes, a range of modes, including how to upgrade pedestrian environments to encourage more walkers. So, this is not the ultimate. This is 10 pilot projects. Just to be clear, we're not solving the problem. We're trying to create a clearinghouse of information, trying to learn from. There's so many initiatives throughout the region where people have improved walking, where people have improved bike access, where counties are running bike share, where micro transit is successful. Let's take those lessons. Let's see how we can apply them and really grow them throughout the region. That's really the intent. But yes, you're right. We want to be as broad as we can in creating these pilot programs.
I have one suggestion on that. Once we get third track complete and we have a little bit more reverse commute situation, a critical last mile, and it would help the railroad considerably with ridership, is that last mile between Ronkonkoma Station and Macarthur Airport. It's pretty much literally a mile from Ronkonkoma Station to the terminal. I mean, right now it's kind of iffy to try and do anything because we don't have that many reverse commuters coming out. But once we have the capacity to run trains that can go eastbound in the morning, that's something that really should be looked at.
Yeah.
You know? And I know that you want to do partnerships, but to get some sort of partnership where you'd have shuttle buses that would run on a regular basis between Ronkonkoma Station and Macarthur.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And to the broader point is we would expect there'd be more demand for last mile, mobility throughout the island, because when you have the track capacity, you'll have more opportunity for reverse commute. So that's exactly right.
Okay, thank you.
Shaul, if I may. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, we're good.
Like, where does improving local bus service for the suburban operators like Beeline, Westchester, Nice, and Nassau fit into the overall strategy with bike ped and third-party micromobility options? Only 5% of inbound Metro North riders and 3% of inbound Long Railroad riders get to their station by bus.
Yeah, so we're not really getting involved in the bus operations per se, but certainly like Beeline and other operators are looking at alternatives to the fixed route traditional kind of bus service and more on demand and that sort of thing. And those there could be opportunities for pilot projects to really enhance the reliability, connectivity, convenience, all those kinds of things. So all that's going to be explored. It's being explored now. I mean, Westchester County and Nassau are looking at those issues right now. So we're in conversation with the counties, and we will continue to be in conversation with the counties. And I think we all share a goal in advancing mobility services and access to the stations.
Okay, thanks.
I also wanted to add, Bob, on top of what you said, was when we were writing the scope of the study, we were already in communication with the counties, and we were very careful to approach this study in a way that doesn't impact negatively any of the bus systems or the routes or what's going on. What we would want to do is find areas where there are gaps that other alternatives can supplement, but not take away from suburban bus systems. Does that make sense?
Yeah, good clarification. Yeah.
And also, I think this is a really interesting point, because when we were jumping into this, we thought, oh, where does microtransit fit in regionally, right? And I think right off the bat, you think, oh, well, it must fit really well into the high density locations where we have, lots of people coming and going, and there's going to be a lot of need for on-demand microtransit. But now that we're into this study, we're actually noticing that our suburban bus operators are saying some of the areas where they think microtransit can work well is in some of the lowest density areas. Like, for example, that Suffolk County on-demand transit. So we have two really interesting examples of microtransit just in our region. One is the Suffolk Transit on-demand micromobility pilot that's really working in a low density area. And then we also have the Wheels to You in Norwalk, Connecticut, that's really in a higher density area. So I think that's interesting how, some of these alternatives can have multiple applications and run in slightly different ways. So we're exploring that as a part of the study as well. But ultimately, like I said, we don't want to take away from or impact negatively any bus system.
Ready?
Thank you. I see Gabriel Brunswick has a hand up.
Yeah, I'm just curious how fare integration fits into this. Is this part of the scope of your study, or is it outside the scope? Or because I think, my personal take is that that's sort of the way the rubber meets the road on a lot of this stuff.
You know, that's a great question. It is outside the immediate scope of this study, but it's certainly an issue that, you know, ultimately, as you point out, is going to be important. But it's you know, this study is really just to create the toolkit and, you know, sort of start rolling out some pilot projects. And these are the kinds of issues that may certainly arise and, you know, be up for discussion and, you know, more evaluation over time. But you know, it's a complicated issue, clearly. So we're trying to be, you know, take some steps, but not, you know, not cover all the, you know, the possibilities here.
All right. Lisa, do you see anybody else with a hand up, or are we good?
I don't.
All right.
My hand is up.
Sorry, Chris, I
Okay.
didn't stand there.
Yeah.
Who?
Christopher.
Yeah, me.
Okay.
I'd like to answer that question she mentioned about the transportation in Suffolk County. The one problem is in the Suffolk County, they cost a little more money. It's $5. The problem is not a lot of the seniors and disabled people can afford that. And a lot of them, and that's even not just Suffolk County, we're talking about Westchester, Beeline as well. They also cost like around $5 to $6. It's a lot of money. So if we try to do that, we got to try to maybe link the same, similar, like something a little lower price, because it's very hard. And what I'm seeing is a lot of the seniors are disabled. They'll just stay home or get someone to drive them because it's a lot of money. But the buses they have out there, they do run, but they don't run in certain towns like Spionk. I don't only see them at West Hampton, but the problem is it's to get to the other side of the fork is a challenge. But Beeline buses, you have them running like it's no day tomorrow. But those are issues that we still need to, I think we all need to work on. Thank you.
All right. Is that concluded? I think we have everybody. All right, Bob, we appreciate
Thank you.
Well, thank you for
And
giving us
Emily,
this
we appreciate
opportunity.
you too.
Thank you very much. Really
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great.
All righty, so concluding that presentation, we move down to Hector Garcia. So Hector, you're up.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You kind of already gave the summary about the M9, so I really don't have anything to add. Kathy will be making some remarks at the committee meeting in a few weeks. Ridership, we're still hovering at about, in the mid 50s of pre-COVID levels, pre 50%. I mean, mid 50% of pre-COVID levels. The mask, the feds extended the mask mandate to May 3rd. So we'll see what happens at that point. The Penn Station construction is underway. Coming up in August, part of that, the connecting concourse that they're raising the ceiling and widening it, the one side of it is going to be opened up probably in August. So people will be able to see, they'll get to feel half of what the great new thing is going to be while the other half gets finished. But so in August, that'll be a big milestone where we open up half of that. And it's supposed to be finished early next year, but we're trying to get it done before the end of this year. So it's possible that the whole widening there can be done by the end of the year. If not, it'll be early next year.
Excuse me, Hector, is that the portion with the stores, or is that the other side?
It's the side opposite where Kmart used to be.
Okay, so it's on the south side.
The last thing is just third track, is still underway. You see all these weekend outages, and it's on schedule to complete major construction this fall. Before the end of the year, but looks like mid-fall. And lastly, on April 28th, she's gonna do a Connect with Us event at Hicksville Station. On Thursday the 28th, she'll be there from about 7 to 9 to talk to customers. And that's all I had.
Okay, great. Hector, I know you don't have an answer for it right now, but just something I just wanted to bring up. If you could find out where we're at, if we're anywhere with getting the city field station accessible. I remember we had discussed this a few months back, and you said that there had been plans drawn up originally, and it got put on hold because of, they thought Port Authority would pick it up when they put the air train in. Now that's out of the question. And then you mentioned that perhaps the city of New York might be doing some work there. And I bring this up because MTA had a big presentation there today about, hey, come on out to City Field, all the ways you can get out there. And they could have also just as well said, unless you're disabled, then you can't come. So it's something I think we really need to push the issue on. And if you could just point us in the right direction on who we should be trying to light a fire under for that, we'd really appreciate it.
All right.
I was gonna bring that up to Bob Paley, and then we realized that it was mostly about the third-party vendors that he was trying to talk about. So if you can get us any information on that, I'd really appreciate it.
Okay.
All righty. Anybody? I can't see any hands raised.
Deborah has her hand up, but there's a question in the chat that says, from Robert Hale, that says, is there any way the M9A contract can be redone under the FRA's alternate compliance rules, especially since SEPTA is now looking into the same?
Well, do we even have an M9A contract? I thought that was, I don't even know if that's been negotiated yet, has it?
I believe it was on hold, but I believe that talks may be progressing on that, but there's nothing definitive yet.
Okay.
So there is not a contract yet, right?
Correct. There's no contract.
So that means, not picking on you, Hector, so that means we're gonna see the M3s for another year or so then, I guess. Once they come back into service.
You're very perceptive, Jerry.
And the rail fans love that. The rail fans are waiting for them to come back into service. I don't know why, but they have a fascination with them, but whatever.
Bring back the bar cars.
Yeah. Alrighty,
Deborah has her hand
anybody
up.
else on the screen with a hand raised,
Hi.
Hector?
Hi,
Deborah.
Jerry. Jerry, I want to thank you for what you just said about bringing accessibility to the city field station for the Long Island Railroad. And I'm also going to add the 7 subway, because there is a way, if it pulls in, that they can open up this gate and we can go down the ramp, but they still haven't fixed that station. And no matter how many years we've complained, and we also advocated for it for the Long Island Railroad, it's like persons with disabilities, with mobility issues. I mean, thank God Edith's not here. She was always upset. You know what I'm saying? I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
she was fuming. I mean, and what's also frustrating is like when we've had to take accessoride and where they put you to find it, that it's so hard to find. So while we're here, let's make sure we also have good accessoride stops where we all can find them. So when we get on and off, whatever we do, Long Island Railroad, whatever, we're there. It's safer. But thank you. And I will be very happy to advocate with you, because that is a very important issue you brought up. So you have my 100% support.
That's greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
I will say
appreciate it.
today at the press conference that there was Dave Colon, who was on with us earlier, did ask the president of the Mets did ask Sandy Alderson about whether or not they were going to put some better information, better instruction, better directions on how to get to City Field, or as I like to say, Forever Shea, how to
Yes.
get out there by
Agreed.
bicycle. And Sandy said, my friend Sandy, and he said, yes, but you got to give me a day, more than a day. So I think that there will be, he took that to heart, and I think that that's something that they'll put up on their website. So,
Can
I
I bring
think
up something, Lisa, in reference
Mets-
with the Mets?
the
You know
Mets
what's
are open to it.
frustrating? That out here in Brooklyn, they're there, the cyclones, that's an accessible station. That's also an accessible place to get into. It's, I can't understand why they could do it out here, but not there.
Well, because they just built the Cyclones ballpark, and City Field is accessible to get into. The it's just a station, which has been
Yeah,
there
it's the
forever.
station, right?
So the
I've been
station
in City Field. It's
absolutely
not
be
completely
rebuilt.
accessible as everybody thinks it is. It's not as completely, there are issues. You have to really, they don't have good signage to get around. That's the problem. The Cyclone is better signage. That's the problem. I've
Field
been,
trip.
okay. I'll be happy to help you since unfortunately we lost Edith. You have a choice. I can use my walker or my wheelchair, or if you want both, we'll bring both, okay? I will be there to help.
All right, greatly appreciated.
you.
Ron, you have your hand up? Ron Troy?
You're on mute, Ron.
Hi, I have two questions for Hector, if I might. I'll make them very quick. First, whether M9s or M9As, I've been told, I've never actually seen an M9, that the headrests are just as bad as the ones on the M7s and C3s. Now, I know most of the M9s are at least partially built and maybe nothing can be done about them, but when the M9As are done, can they at least redesign the headrests to make them non-painful? That's question one. Question two, we're several months away, hopefully, from East Side access and also completion of the expansion. And one of the things that I'm wondering about is how people, if they're in diesel country, will get to be able to get to Grand Central. Will it be an up and over and maybe a 20 or 30-minute connection? Or will it be an across the platform, or what? What in general terms is Long Island Railroad planning for this?
We're finalizing those details, but I mean, in general terms, diesel territory, so for the most part at Jamaica, there's not going to be the traditional connection at Jamaica for the majority of trains. But in consideration of diesel territory, some of those trains will have connections. So people from diesel territory shouldn't have to wait, as long at Jamaica. But for everybody else, they're gonna have to just get on and off and switch trains as depending on where they're going.
We get that we'd have to switch trains, but a train transfer at Jamaica can take anywhere from 30 seconds running across the platform from say 1 to 2, track 1 to 2 or whatever, or it can take, you go up the escalator if it's working, or the elevator if it's working, and then you come down and then wait half an hour for the next train going. So that is, it is time to be discussing this. And I think the Railroad Council is a great place to talk about it, to make sure that the railroad does it in a way that is viable for diesel commuters.
All right. Hey, Ron, you mentioned something about headrests.
Yes.
That is absolutely the first time I've heard anybody mention it. Have you experienced this yourself, or?
The M9s, Jerry,
Yeah.
the M9s, I've never even seen one other than pictures.
Okay.
The M7s, if you actually feel, and the C3s, if you actually put your head back, it's not just hard as a rock, it's shaped something like an M or a W. And it's got these peaks that come out and your head kind of bounces around on them. Now I try to nap when I'm on a train, and unless you bring a pillow, you can't, because
Okay.
it's incredibly painful. And they knew about this when they did the C3s. They knew about it when they did the M7s. And, now I'm told that nothing has changed with the M9s from people who've ridden them.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Do we have anybody else?
And
Chris, you had
Shaul
your hand
both
up?
have their hands up, and I was also going to ask Hector if he had any updates on the BMOs.
Under what?
The BMOs, the battery, the dual
Oh.
power battery.
I was just gonna say that, Lisa, I second your motion. And
No, so-
any question.
Yeah, we got the date, the report from Alstom, and we're reviewing that, and then we have to make a decision of if we're gonna go to the next phase or not. So we're not.
Transit is doing some testing on that also.
The what?
New Jersey Transit is testing some BMOOS as well.
I mean, us, they did a report for us and they did some simulations. So now we're reviewing the data and then we have to see if it makes sense to go to the next phase. The next phase was to give them 2 train cars, retrofit, and they're going to retrofit those cars to fit the batteries in. To do that, they have to take away some seats. They have to take away some systems to make it fit, and actually, run it in the USA branch to make it work in reality. So we're evaluating to see if it makes sense to go to the next phase or not right now, based on some of what they found.
Hector, can you just keep us posted on that? Because it's something I just wanted to bring up. I know this is already in process, but if you get to a point where you decide that might not be viable, the railroad might want to take a relook at the gas turbine cars. I know the railroad actually ran a couple back, I guess, in the 70s. And I think the reason they didn't move forward with it was, I guess they said the fuel costs were a little bit too high. But 70s is, or 70s, even the 80s, we're talking like 40 years ago. Technology has improved so much that maybe you could come up with a viable gas turbine car that would work. And another reason I bring this up is because when the railroad originally did this back in the day, they did that in cooperation or conjunction with the Federal Transit Authority or the Federal Transit Administration. And I happened to notice this last week, there were a couple of times that Jano was with Pete Buttigieg. So, I mean, obviously we've got a connection with the feds. So if this electric doesn't work out, maybe we could talk to them about revisiting it and, and giving it a shot. Just a thought. I'm just throwing that out there. I mean, right now, obviously you got to do your due diligence with the electric, but I just have some concerns. I know it's already in place. What you're looking to do with the electric may work fine on the Oyster Bay branch because it's a short distance from Oyster Bay to when you pick up the electric. I guess it's in East Williston or at East Mineola. But if you want to expand that like out to Fort Jefferson, that would really be stretching. That would really be stretching the electric. So just a thought, just something I wanted to throw out there. Lisa, do we have anybody else that's
Christopher and Shaul.
okay?
Just to answer the question with Robert, I've been on the M9 trains like multiple of times, and let me make it clear, that train runs perfectly. And let me tell you something, let me tell you, at night, when that M9 comes in, I'm looking like the light coming in, it's like, oh my God, what's coming in so brightly? I mean, I have to put on my sunglasses on during the night because that's it's that strong. And let me tell you something, there is a big difference between an M9 and an M7. The M7 rocks like this, and I'm going like, if I'm on the M9 train, going even to Brooklyn, it's just going smooth.
But what
like
about
that.
the headrest?
I don't see any problem with the headrest. I can see the lights. It looks beautiful.
I didn't see any problem. My problem with the M9 was it was too bright. You couldn't really take a good snooze. You couldn't take a snooze in the morning because it was too bright.
Yeah, but in one way, it's a new train, but at least it's coming in, and at least you'll know it's coming in means backup from the edge. The one thing everyone did complain was from the M7 or the M3, they weren't bright enough. And you don't even never know when it comes in. The only thing you'll hear them coming in is like this, going bonga, bonga, bonga. It's like doing its marching in. But the M9 comes in, at least you can hear it go. I've been on this train, and I know the 88 task force did test it. Okay. And let me tell you, that was the only train. I will say this on the record. Edith said, "I love it." For her to say it,
that's as good as an endorsement as you can get.
Yes. And let me tell you something, because Hector, you should remember this. When Vanessa Locker was there and Ryan, you almost fainted when you heard that. And I had to ask her to repeat that again and check her pulse. I should remember that one.
Yeah. Okay. We have Shaul has his hand raised.
Yeah. as we're getting closer and closer to the start of East Side Access, given that, when do you plan on providing information on service patterns? The changes are going to be major, and I think it would be helpful for riders, elected stakeholders, to have some idea of what services is going to be running.
Yes, I mean, we're developing the plan right now, so it's stay tuned. That's coming very soon, within the next few months.
All right. Ron, you have a follow-up?
Yeah, this to Christopher. Please do me a favor and check out the headrests. Are they smooth? Are they soft enough? Now, you're in position to give them the test. And if I'm wrong, believe me, I'm happy to be wrong. Although I would like the M7s and the C3s fixed someday if those cars ever get refurbished.
I'm gonna say this: if you saw my head doing right now, I'm doing a smooth shaving moment right there for you.
Anyway,
No,
please confirm it.
I've been on the M9s and I had no problems at all with the headrests at all with the M9s.
And especially it ran on the West Hempstead branch. And let me tell you, even my mother didn't have to use the bridge plate. It's even for a walker or a wheelchair. So let me tell you, any motorized wheelchair, better slow down, because if they come in so fast, they might go right to the next door. That's how perfect it is.
The seat was comfortable, 100% comfortable. For the first time I sat in a seat where they put us for persons with disabilities. It was like my old Contour chair I used to fall asleep in. I really wanted to stay on the train because it was so comfortable. I wanted to take a nap. It was wonderful.
And trust me, they're falling asleep
And
on the
I'm
trains, Jerry. You'll learn on
And
that.
I am a very picky person, but I loved it. Okay, but I can understand what you're saying. But I just want to say, for me, it was unbelievable. And my cousin was next to me. She loved it because she didn't feel anything, which was great for us. So thank you.
All righty. So
Jerry, next meeting, I'm going to ask you.
what's that?
Not Jerry, Chris. Next meeting, I'm going to ask you what, now that you've specifically gone to check out the headrests, how they are.
All righty. Fair enough. Anybody else? We good? All right. I think we're good, Hector.
One more thing, Jerry. So I talked to Kathy about joining one of the council meetings just to say hello at least. She couldn't make it today, but I'm going to see if she can make it next month.
Well, that's fine. We understand. Just trying to run one of these railroads is crazy enough. Trying to run two simultaneously, I know our time is limited. So no, that's fine. Whenever, we'll give you the date. Well, obviously you'll know the dates of when our meetings are, and if she can just make a 5 or 10 minute cameo, that'd be fantastic.
Right.
All righty, so that concludes Hector's portion of it. We'll go down to old business. We had printed out the Long Island Railroad Riders Bill of Rights and also our priorities going forward. Now these were revised as per minor revisions as per comments made at the last couple of meetings. Christy, did you see anything that you thought still needed further revision, or are we good?
I'm actually looking at reviewing it right now, but it looks to be good.
Yeah, I'm happy with the revisions that we sent out. Lisa, have you heard any feedback from anybody else?
I've not. Nope.
All righty, so
We're
if
going
we
to
don't
use
get,
also as sort of as a jumping off point to
Okay.
also see if the other councils wanted to join LIRRCC. But regardless of whether they do or not, it's certainly something that we can post on the website. Oh, I think I just saw some lightning. That we can post on the website and we can share.
2022 spring conference for District 1.
All right,
Excuse me, Lisa, because you guys asked me to put in the accessibility. I did read it. It was very good.
Good, thank you.
Right,
And I
thanks,
have Sunny over here.
Okay.
Not for long.
Alrighty, so unless we get any further kickback from, I know Larry's busy working right now, or from Brian, we'll just go forward with the Bill of Rights and the priorities as recorded today.
Great.
Any other old business, Lisa, that you think of?
We have the council priorities, but we can continue that for on our next when we put that over.
Okay,
For
but I
our-
mean, it's out there, everybody's seen them, so I don't,
Yeah.
if you want to bring it back for the next meeting, we can do that,
Yeah, that would be great.
just in case
Especially
we need
we
to
have-
refine it a little bit
Yep.
more, but the Bill of Rights, I'm good on, you know. we
Okay,
can-
great.
Like you said, we'll just see, maybe Metro North wants to do something similar, or jump on ours or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, even transit.
Yes.
Alrighty, so do you have anything else under old business, Lisa?
No.
Okay,
I don't think so. I know
Alrighty.
Christopher has new business. I don't know if anybody else has new business.
I know, do you?
I do two things that, one was actually Lisa forgot to, I had my hand up earlier, we wanted to save it for later, about 36th Street.
About the shooting.
Yeah, well, we're gonna call it a shooting slash smoke attack, I'm calling it. That's what the kids at District 75 is calling it. But just to answer the question earlier, since that does represent Transit 34, I've been at meetings with Transit 34 with the community board and the elected officials. The one thing that there's been complaints in the community also, and by the way, Jerry, we do want to thank the MTA police on your end, because they were on the scene helping out at Atlantic Avenue at the Pacific side too. So I just want to make that clear for the record.
Okay.
They did help crowd control, and just want to make that clear. The other thing is there's always been a problem with that camera at 36th Street, because somehow it has been an issue with, now we're hearing separate stories in this, but I think we need to watch some of these cameras along the 4th Avenue corridor, because it's
All
been
right,
handled by
Chris.
them.
Chris, that's transit riders. This is the Long Island Railroad.
No, because what I'm trying to say is, and it's coming into right now, so not just the 4th Avenue corridor. It is being brought also into your turf, Jerry, in the Atlantic station. They're claiming that your cameras are not working. So I want to give you a heads up on there.
Who's they? That's making this
The
claim.
community claiming that they think the cameras are not working at Atlantic,
How
which
would
I'm
they know?
looking on.
I'm not being sarcastic. I mean, how would they know that the cameras are working or not working?
That's the something I don't know, and I agree. How do they know this? I don't know, but I'm going to say this. I don't believe it half the time, because I know that if there's a problem with the camera there, it's like telling them to put it into the complaint or put in a request. But I've seen the cameras working, because I see the cops responding faster, like snap from my finger. So I just want to give you a heads up on that.
No, and I appreciate that. And, it's a big system, and, to have a glitch and to lose a camera here or there, it happens. It's just technology. You can't.
Yeah.
But I mean, for the most part, I think that they've done a pretty good job maintaining them and keeping them working.
And that's why I wanted to make this bring to your attention, because lately the press are saying different stories. I'm saying this. I know how MTA Police and Atlantic works. They know how to deal with issues, and they've been doing it. I've been passing there hundreds of times, and I have to say, Atlantic looks even cleaner on the Long Island Railroad. It is nice to go to a clean bathroom.
All right,
You heard me saying that. I'm saying the truth.
I don't think I'm exposing a confidence or anything by saying this, but at a recent briefing, we had a briefing on the shooting the other day, and it appears that just one news organization, and you didn't mention the name, but I know Jana was a little ticked because they were like picking on this thing, and it's like, seriously? And, and I agree with him, but he says it was just one. Sometimes you get that one reporter that they think they're onto something, and they want a little splash, make a little news. So I don't think, personally, I don't think that's really a problem. It's worth asking a question, but
Exactly.
I think, but for the most part, I think we're good.
I think we're always going to be good, because thank God we have MTA Police and the Transit 32 all working together, and that's why I've been saying since day one.
Yeah. Alrighty. Do we have anything else?
We do
Lisa, can you
not.
check I don't see any. Again, I only see like 4 people, so I don't have a hand up. I can't see anybody's hands up.
I have everybody in my
Okay,
control here. My controls may not work, but I can see everybody.
alrighty, so we'll have a motion to adjourn. There being no further business. Chrissy, you want to make a motion to adjourn?
Larry
Motion
did.
to adjourn our meeting for today.
Yep, I'll second it.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Thank
Aye.
you so much.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Bye,
Really
everybody.
appreciate it.
Happy
you.
holidays.
Happy Easter and happy Pesach.
Thank you. Chag
Thank
Sameach.
you.
Just be careful of those corners.